These days, 90% of our lives is spent consuming information. Reading, scrolling social media, watching TV, going on YouTube, listening to a podcast, and pretty much everything else. But where does it all go? How much of it do you use, if any? And how can you consume media effectively and actually use it? Well, in this video, we're going to look at how you can go from a consumer to a creator and not only consume media effectively, but how you can actually use what you learn to create things of your own. Well, let's get into it. So we live in the age of consuming. You constantly have all the information you could ever want right at your fingertips. And while this should be a good thing for the vast majority of us, it isn't. We constantly bounce around, mindlessly consume, and have to deal with information overload pretty much 100% of the time. As a result, we forget a lot.
Oh shit, I forgot something that I do every day.
In fact, most of what we consume is forgotten within days, sometimes less, which means pretty much all the consuming we do is a complete waste of time. Unless, of course, it's for entertainment purposes only. But when we consume effectively, we are consuming only things that are valuable to us. Not only that, we are storing what we learn so that we can actually use it in creating our own stuff. This way, when you go to create new things, you never start from zero. And consuming goes from this wasted time to time used building up your knowledge base, and it's extremely valuable. So, going to a consumer from a creator is about three main things. Number one, being mindful about what you consume. Number two, storing things that you learn that resonate with you. And number three, having a system in place that allows you to use what you have stored. Let's dive into each one. Number one, being mindful about what you consume. The main problem is that we consume so much. It's practically impossible for us to remember it all. This is where something called the low information diet comes in. The low information diet is something that is constantly talked about in productivity circles, but was first popularized by Tim Ferriss in his book, The 4-Hour Workweek, and it involves consciously limiting the amount of information that we consume. The idea is that by reducing information intake, you can focus more on actionable and useful information. The goal is to minimize distraction and information overload by being more selective about what information you allow to enter into your daily routine. Basically, be selectively ignorant towards things that are actually useful to you in that particular moment. If you're working on a project and doing research for it, everything you are consuming should be useful for that project immediately. No more mindlessly scrolling social media or the news. Consume with purpose. You can implement the low information diet by asking yourself one simple question before consuming something. Am I going to use this information either right now or soon? If the answer is no, then don't consume that information. Now we know how to effectively consume media. Let's get into number two, storing what we learn to actually use. There are several ways to go about storing what you learn to actually use. My favorite is creating your own second brain. Second brain, which was popularized by the book Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte, is essentially an organized and structured system where you store your knowledge or things that you've learned in one place. There are several tools you can use to do this. I like to use Notion. You can use Apple Notes or pretty much anything else. The important thing is that you have a place to store knowledge that is structured, organized, and easy to navigate. The basic structure is a bunch of folders, each one being its own category, and inside each of the folders is every piece of knowledge that you have stored that falls within that category. There's a couple tools you can use to make it easier on you and reduce friction as much as possible. The first tool I like to use is called Readwise. It automatically syncs your notes from books, Twitter, or social media to the note-taking app of your choice. The second one I like to use is called Sniped. It's to automate notes from your podcast, transcribes a voice clip from a podcast that you listen to, and then syncs it to your note-taking app. And then finally, you can add widgets on your phone to easily get to your knowledge base, whatever note-taking app you use. Okay, let's get into the final step of the process, using what you have stored or what you learn. This step is entirely about creating, about having a system that takes advantage of what we have stored. What's the point of storing all this stuff if you're never going to use it? The point of all of this information, all this consuming, all this knowledge is for you to create things of your own. The basic idea is that you never start from zero again. You start from your knowledge base or everything you have stored. And information you learn can be reused over and over again and connected to one another in what you create. For me, that thing is YouTube videos. Let me show you how I use my second brain, aka my knowledge base, to help create my videos. When I go to create a new video, I have my template that auto-generates when I create a new video, but let's say that I'm just going to create a new one based on your knowledge base. Let's say I'm making a video on sitting on the floor, which I just made a video about. Then I can go in Notion, the hotkey for search is Command P. And I go search, and this searches my entire Notion or my knowledge base. I'm going to type floor sitting. And out comes everything that I have on floor sitting. So what I like to do is I open these in new tabs and go through each one. So, okay, I'm like, oh, that's good. I can look through all my knowledge here. And can look through each one and be like, oh yeah, this study that I have stored in my second brain actually is pretty useful to this. So I'll copy this. Or in Notion, I can do a link to page, sitting on the floor, reduces this one. Yep. Get rid of that one. Get rid of this one. Sitting on the floor significantly alters spinal pain. So as you can see, I'm starting from all this knowledge. You can also just copy and paste this in. And as you can see, I'm no longer starting anything from scratch. So now when I'm going and writing this video about sitting on the floor, I'm like, oh, I have this study that talks about how sitting on the floor reduces lumbar lordosis. I have this other study that looks at children sitting on the floor, and I have a baseline to start from, which is all my knowledge. So it just makes it a lot easier. You're never starting from scratch. So figure out what it is that you want to create and then use your knowledge base to help you do so. If you don't know what to create, think about your passions or what you like to do, and then figure out if any of them could be shared with the world and how. Here's some questions you can think about to help you figure out what might be right for you. What do I love to talk about in my free time? What skills do I have that others would find useful or like to learn from? What problems do I want to solve? What makes me unique? What type of content do I consume? And remember, you might not be able to find what works for you easily. It's about trying a lot of things and seeing what you like best. And that's it. With these 3 steps, hopefully you feel equipped to consume media effectively and start creating things of your own. Hope you enjoyed. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe and turn on bell notifications. Thanks for watching.